I was once forbidden by my own sister-in-law from attending her wedding, simply because she thought I was poor and unworthy of sitting with her family. I am 38 years old and have been married for 6 years, living a quiet, patient life in a 3-generation household. But beneath the criticism and contemptuous looks, I kept a secret one that, if revealed, would change everything. For 6 years I've been called Arthur's wife, never once hearing my mother-in-law call me her daughter. People say that as long as your husband loves you, the hardships of marriage are bearable. But only those who have been treated like a stranger in their own home can understand that some wounds cannot be healed by a husband's love alone. That evening, I was washing dishes in the small kitchen. My husband, Arthur, was helping his father, Henry, clean the coffee table in the living room. My mother-in-law, Margaret, sat stiffly on the wooden sofa, holding a cup of hot tea, her gaze fixed on her daughter, Isabel, who was excitedly talking about her upcoming wedding. "How many guests are you planning for, Mother?" Isabel asked. "I'm thinking of a 5-star hotel, of course. Not some cheap community hall like poor people use." She smirked, glancing at me as I washed the dishes. I pretended not to hear. I was used to it. After years of living with them, I had heard enough of their barbs. But today was different. She was getting married, which meant I was expected to help with a wedding where I wasn't even considered a real part of the family. I dried my hands and walked into the living room. "Isabel," I said softly, "if you need any help with the wedding, just let me know." Isabel scanned me from head to toe, her smile vanishing. "You don't need to involve yourself in important family matters. My wedding is for sophisticated people. Not everyone gets to be a part of it." Margaret said nothing, only taking a sip of her tea, but her eyes showed agreement. She had never once defended me. I returned to the kitchen, my heart twisting. Over the sound of running water, I heard Isabel's faint laugh. Just because she married into this family doesn't mean she's been accepted. I bit my lip. 6 years ago, when Arthur brought me home, his mother had frowned. "Where is her family from? What do they do?" I was just an ordinary girl from a modest background. But I had a job, self-respect, and a belief that sincerity would eventually be welcomed. I was wrong. I don't blame my husband. Arthur is a kind, gentle man, but his gentleness often leads to silence when I need his protection. He would hold my hand and whisper, "Give me more time. Mother is difficult, but she will come to understand you." I believed him. Later, as I was putting the clean dishes away, Isabel continued, "I don't want an outsider like her at my wedding. She looks so plain. What if the groom's family mistakes her for the help?" My father-in-law, Henry, remained silent as usual. He was a kind man, but he never dared to oppose his wife and daughter. Back in our room, Arthur followed me, hesitating. "Don't be upset. Isabel is just blunt. She doesn't mean anything by it." I gave a small, tired smile. "I know. I've lived here for 6 years." He sat down, his voice softer. "You know I love you very much, but they are my mother and sister. It's difficult for me." I understood, but I also knew I was reaching my limit. The night before the wedding invitations were to be sent out, Isabel tried on her dress in the living room. Margaret's eyes shone. "My daughter looks like a movie star. She deserves to marry a wealthy man." Oh. As Isabel talked about her prestigious guests, my hand trembled as I poured tea. Her words were like needles, piercing a wound that had been festering for years. As I cleared the cups, she uttered one last icy remark. "This is a wedding for the elite. The poor should know their place and stay away." I froze. I looked up at her, then at my mother-in-law. Both were unfazed, as if the comment was perfectly normal. I lowered my head, my voice catching in my throat. "Yes, I understand." But a question echoed silently within me. Perhaps the time for patience was over. In this house, my worth was measured by my ability to bear children, and after 6 years, I had none. One quiet Sunday morning, I heard my mother-in-law in the garden talking on the phone with her friend Mrs. Gable, the neighborhood gossip. "Any news of a baby from your daughter-in-law yet?" Mrs. Gable's voice carried clearly through the open window. "We're still waiting. What else can we do?" Margaret replied, her tone dripping with disappointment. But looking at her, I think it will be a long time. I clutched the shirt in my hands. Just then, Isabel walked out of the living room, munching on an apple. Honestly, she said casually, a woman who can't conceive is a burden on her husband's family. Tears streamed down my face silently. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. For 6 years, I had lived like a criminal for a crime I didn't commit. I fulfilled my duties, cooked, cleaned, and cared for my mother-in-law when she was ill. Yet, because I hadn't had a child, I was labeled incomplete. No one knew about the thin envelope in my bedside table, containing a medical report. I was perfectly healthy, but I had never shown it to anyone. I had never told them I was the one who had chosen to wait, not because I didn't love children, but because I knew a child deserved to grow up in a warm, loving environment. I wasn't strong enough to protect a child from this coldness. I had been pregnant once, 3 years ago. It was during a large family gathering. I was exhausted but still had to serve everyone. I lost the baby that day. I told no one. My mother-in-law would have said, "A daughter-in-law that fragile can't handle anything important." Isabel would have dismissed it. I knew their words would only add to the pain. I went downstairs and poured Margaret a glass of juice, a daily reflex. She was watching television, as if her cruel words from the morning never happened. In our room, I gently opened the drawer and took out the medical report. Normal reproductive health. It read in bold letters. I held it for a moment, then leaned over my sleeping husband. "You know everything," I whispered, my voice breaking. "But do you feel the pain I feel? I know you love me, but this is too hard." He stirred, his hand instinctively finding mine in his sleep. I didn't need anyone else in this house to understand me. I just wished that he, the man I built this life with, would choose to stand by my side, just once. I didn't blame him, but I feared one day I would have no choice but to either leave or awaken them all with a truth they never expected. That night, the family gathered in the living room. Isabel was on a video call with her fiancé, Leo, a well-dressed man who seemed somewhat shy. "This is my mother, my father," Isabel introduced, "and the one pouring the water is my sister-in-law." She presented me like a servant. Arthur sat beside me, silent. After the call, Isabel showed her mother photos of designer dresses. I glanced over and offered a suggestion. A soft rose color would be elegant and photograph beautifully. Isabel stood up abruptly, snatched the design sketch I had printed, crumpled it, and threw it on the floor. "Who do you think you are to give an opinion? Don't ruin my important day." Margaret looked up. "She has her own taste. Don't force it." My mother-in-law's silence was always a quiet endorsement of their cruelty. Arthur just sat there, his head bowed. I took a deep breath and forced a smile. "It was just a suggestion." Isabel smirked. "At the wedding feast, I suppose you're planning to cook a few of your rustic dishes?" "If you need," I replied gently, "I can help with some simple things." She laughed loudly. "No, thank you. If you cook, people will think it's a charity dinner." The room fell silent. I stood up. "Excuse me, I'm going upstairs to rest." No one stopped me. In my room, I opened my phone. Unread work emails filled the screen. A project sponsorship for the Grand Astoria hotel chain, the very place Isabel planned to hold her wedding, was waiting. My name was listed for the final approval. I leaned back, a long, weary sigh escaping my lips. No one here knew who I was, and I had never wanted them to. Not out of fear, but because I was waiting for the right moment. Isabel looked down on me, thinking I was an uneducated, poor daughter-in-law. She had no idea that while she was in university, I was already managing a chain of commercial properties. While she was an employee at an event company, I was its silent investor. I stayed quiet because when people underestimate you, they reveal their true nature. I scrolled through my emails and saw a thank you note from the hotel chain. The manager had sent a personal invitation for their grand opening, addressed to Eleanor Vance, chairman of the board, Apex Holdings. I read the invitation over and over, then laughed a sad, quiet laugh. The wedding dress Isabel wanted, the feast she mocked, they were all part of a project I was leading. I just hadn't said a word. One morning, I arrived at the Apex Holdings headquarters. No one noticed the woman in a simple white blouse and gray trousers entering through a side door. Here I was not Arthur's wife. I was Eleanor, the chairman. My assistant, Sophie, was waiting for me. "You're early, Madam Chairman. I was just about to send the sponsorship report for your approval." Inside the boardroom, the senior management team stood up as I entered. I sat at the head of the table and scanned the files. They all related to the sponsorship plan for the hotel chain where Isabel was getting married. My eyes fell on the name, the Grand Astoria. The proposal was signed by Leo. The door opened. "My apologies for being late," a man's voice said. "Madam Chairman, I didn't expect you today." It was Leo, Isabel's fiancé. He looked professional, if a little nervous. "I'm here to review the support packages," I said calmly. "It seems there's an issue with the Grand Astoria." Leo bowed his head slightly. "Yes, I can explain. Their main event is fast approaching. A delay in sponsorship could affect their entire media campaign." I picked up my pen, ready to sign the approval, then set it down. "Sophie," I said, "print me a separate copy of this. I need to adjust a few details." In my private office, Sophie closed the door. "Are you planning to withdraw the sponsorship?" I looked at her. "Perhaps just postpone it. When people lack basic decency, any generosity becomes meaningless." Sophie, the only one who knew my whole story, remained silent. I signed a different document, one that transferred the final decision on the sponsorship directly to the chairman's desk, meaning, to me. With a single word, I could throw Isabel's wedding plans into chaos. I never wanted power. I chose to live simply, hoping to be loved for who I was. But kindness, when misplaced, only invites contempt. I thought of Margaret's cold words and Isabel's disdain. "They think I'm just a shadow," I said to Sophie. "Well, let's show them that a shadow can light up the entire room." That afternoon, the house was busy with wedding preparations, but I felt like a ghost. I had been cleaning the living room, carefully dusting some family heirlooms in a glass cabinet. Isabel walked in and pushed my hand away. "Leave this to the family. Go rest." 6 years, and I still wasn't family. Isabel walked off, calling out, "Mother, Eleanor was touching the heirlooms." Margaret came out, gave me a look, and walked away without a word. Her silence was a confirmation. I had no right to touch their sacred things. That evening at dinner, the family discussed the final wedding plans. My name was not mentioned for any task. I was officially excluded. Later, Arthur found me in our room. "I am your wife, aren't I?" I asked, my voice trembling. He hesitated. "You are my wife," he finally said. "Then don't I have the right to be treated like family?" He bowed his head, unable to answer. A sad smile touched my lips. That was enough. I would no longer try to please anyone. The next day, the family gathered to finalize the guest list for the intimate rehearsal dinner with the groom's family. My name was not on it. "What about me?" I asked quietly. Isabel didn't even look up. "You're already family. This is for introducing everyone. You and Arthur can represent us." But Margaret added, "No, just Arthur and I will go. You stay home and cook. We can't have the in-laws thinking our family lacks standards." That was the final blow. I walked up to our room and locked the door. I sat on the bed and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I opened my email and wrote a short, simple message to Sophie, instructing her to arrange the official sponsorship signing ceremony. The time, the same day as the rehearsal dinner. The place, the main hall of the Grand Astoria. The guest of honor, Chairman Eleanor Vance. I hit send. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was simply reclaiming my existence. The first voice I heard as I entered the grand hall was, "Good evening, Madam Chairman." The words, spoken clearly by Leo, the groom, caused the entire room to fall silent. I stood tall in an elegant, understated silk dress. I wasn't there to show off, but to reclaim my place. Margaret turned to Isabel. "What is she doing here? Who invited her?" Isabel marched towards me. "What are you doing here? This is my rehearsal dinner. Leave." I ignored her and handed a folder to Sophie, who had arrived earlier. "Please confirm the schedule with the event manager," Sophie said to a nearby staff member. "The chairman of Apex Holdings has an appointment for a sponsorship signing in the main hall at this time." The hotel manager rushed over, bowing. "Yes, that's correct. Apex Holdings is the diamond sponsor for today's event. We have a table and documents prepared for the official signing." As I walked past Isabel to the designated table, the sound of my heels echoed in the silent room. The bride's family was pale with shock. The groom's family was buzzing with surprise. Leo approached me again, his voice firm. "Madam Chairman, I am truly grateful for this opportunity. I never imagined it would be you here today." I simply nodded. My silent support for his career had been a secret, but he chose not to keep it. The whispers started. "Chairman? I thought she was just Arthur's poor wife." My mother-in-law was stunned. She turned to her husband. "She's a chairman of what?" Henry, my quiet father-in-law, finally spoke. "She once said she handled accounts. I thought she was an accountant." Isabel's face was flushed with a mixture of anger and humiliation. "You just wanted to show off," she hissed. I looked at her, my gaze steady for the first time in years. "I'm not showing off. I am simply in the right place, at the right time, playing my rightful role." "Who is the one making a scene?" The rehearsal dinner continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Every gaze was now directed at me. I was no longer a shadow. The event ended in a tense, awkward silence. At our table, the groom's family was now friendly and respectful. "I'm so surprised to meet you, Madam Chairman," one aunt said. "I thought you were just a quiet little wife." Isabel sat stiffly, her face a mask of stone. Margaret avoided my eyes. Then, Leo stood up and raised his glass. "Today is special, not just because our families are meeting, but because the person I respect most in my career is here. I want to thank Madam Chairman Eleanor, who gave me my first chance and taught me how to be a professional and a good person." All eyes turned to me. I saw pride in my husband Arthur's eyes, but also a deep, silent regret. After the guests left, Margaret approached me. She hesitated, her hands clasped tightly, then she bowed her head. "I'm sorry, my child. I was wrong." I was speechless. 6 years, and she had never once called me her child. Now she was apologizing. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's enough that you know now, Mother." As I walked away, I heard Isabel mutter, "Why are you apologizing to her?" "Be quiet, Isabel," Margaret snapped. "Do you still not understand?" For the first time, Isabel was silent. In the parking lot, Arthur caught my hand. "Are you okay?" I smiled. "I'm fine. I feel light. Lighter than I've felt in years." He bowed his head. "I'm sorry. I was a coward. I knew everything, but I wasn't strong enough to speak up for you." I touched his hand gently. "No one is perfect, but from now on, I won't let anyone hurt me again. I will live as my true self." He pulled me into an embrace, and for the first time in 6 years, I felt a true sense of peace. That night in the kitchen, Isabel walked in. She put a dessert on the counter and finally spoke, her voice strained. "About this afternoon, I was harsh. If I offended you, I'm sorry." It was the first apology I had ever heard from her. I looked at her calmly. "You don't need to say it for my sake. You should say it for yours." She looked up, annoyed. "Well, it's your fault too for hiding everything. If you were a chairman, why didn't you just say so?" I shook my head. I wasn't hiding out of fear. I just didn't want to use power or status to earn my place in a family I thought would protect me. Isabel fell silent, her hand trembling slightly. "I never wanted to compete with you," I continued. "I just wanted you to not look down on me. I just wanted to be part of the family, Isabel." Just then, I saw Margaret standing in the doorway. She had heard everything, but she said nothing, and quietly walked away. As I left the kitchen, I paused beside Isabel. "People call you older sister, not because you're older, but because you're supposed to live with more grace." And then I walked away, leaving her in a long, profound silence. The next morning, my mother-in-law asked me to clean her room. I hesitated. I had never been allowed in there, but the door was unlocked. Inside, I found an old black and white wedding photo of my mother-in-law. On the back, in faded ink, she had written, "Marrying a man from a faraway town. I only hope his family will love me." My heart ached. I felt a strange sense of empathy. Just then, she walked in. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Are you cleaning?" "Yes, Mother. You asked me to." She sat down, silent for a long moment. "When I first married into this family," she began, "it was very difficult for me too." She paused, then asked, "Are you still angry with me?" I looked at the woman who had caused me so much pain. "Yes, Mother, I was. I was angry because all I ever wanted was to be seen as family. I was angry because you never asked if I was okay. But," I continued, "I'm also glad you know that. Not everyone is brave enough to ask that question." She reached out and placed her hand on mine. Outside, the morning sun streamed into the old room. "This room has always been closed off," she said softly. "But today, I think it's time to open the windows and let some fresh air in." That evening, our family dinner was quiet but warm. The food was simple, but for the first time, it felt like a family meal. There were no sharp words, no hidden barbs, just small, kind gestures. My mother-in-law passed my father-in-law a piece of chicken. He quietly placed it in Isabel's bowl, and Arthur silently filled my plate with my favorite things. Perhaps a family doesn't need grand gestures. It just needs someone to lower their pride, to love a little more, and to yield a little more. I thought I would find peace if I was just kind and patient, but I've learned that true love doesn't come from how much you yield. It comes from whether others have the decency to see your worth. I was once overlooked, excluded, and scorned, but I didn't fight back with bitterness. I chose to live with integrity, quiet but firm, and that, in the end, is what made them see me differently. A strong woman is not defined by her sharp words, but by her wisdom to know when to step back, when to be silent, and when to stand up in a way that commands respect. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the choice to not let your soul be stained by hatred. If you have ever felt small, overlooked by family, or hurt with no one to turn to, I hope you never give up on your own worth. Don't strive to prove yourself out of anger, and don't collapse from resentment. Just continue to grow, quietly and kindly. One day, life will give you the justice you deserve.